Welcome back to part 2 of the Secret Squad. Spoilers, I guess. This whole run will be sort of spoilers. We are on to our second corporate island, and the things are going pretty well so far. Mechs are on screen. We've got the Techno Beetle with Adrenaline. We've also got a movement upgrade and the Smoke Behind upgrade. The Techno Hornet with plus 2 HP and a damage upgrade on his Needle attack. And then the poor Techno Scarab with no upgrades and very low XP. Now, the next island I'm going to be tackling is Archive, because it looks like it's going to be the least nasty of the options available. You know, Detritus has Tumblebugs, Pinnacle has Explosive Scion and Diggers. Archive looks relatively mild. We've got Starfish and the Smoldering Scion, which doesn't seem to be the worst thing in the world. We're definitely looking for easier, islands to then ramp up and get that snowball going. So the first mission we have to take, or we don't have to, we have to take this eventually due to the map layout. So I'm just going to get it out of the way now, which is to end with 8 spaces on fire. This shouldn't be too bad. I'm trying to deploy my mechs in such a way that I could kind of bait one of the starfish, but unfortunately, the other starfish decides to attack the grid. So this first turn here is a bit of a head scratcher. And I think I'm already going to be doing some editing magic and fast forwarding a little bit in time, because it takes me a while to come up with a solve that I'm happy with. The problem with this turn is that the grid tile on B3 is being attacked by 3 different Vec. We've only got 3 actions, and we've also got the starfish on B4 threatening the grid. So, basically the math of this works out that we can stop one of these grid tiles from being destroyed if we dedicate one of our actions to do so, and that would be the Techno Hornet. We can kill the one starfish and push the other starfish away, but that means that the grid tile on B3 will still wind up being destroyed. Also, the way that the initiative order shakes out, there's not a lot I can do about it, unfortunately. The gastropod on B2 goes after the starfish. If it went before, then it could have killed the starfish for us, but we were not so lucky. So my other mechs are going to be concentrating on damage control, softening things up for the future. We can kill the other alpha starfish, and we can also kill the scarab, and that means we'll have no more starfish to worry about for the remainder of the mission. So that's the trade-off. Oh, I guess I didn't have to skip forward in time. Me explaining my thought process took up all the time in the world. We are now changed, you and I. Older, wiser. Here we have essentially a free turn. None of the enemies are threatening the grid, so this is a good opportunity to try and either prevent further spawns or to just kind of clean up the enemy. So we can do 2 damage and light that one gastropod on fire. We can set up the other gastropod to be killed by friendly fire, and that leaves the Techno Beetle with a free move, which we can do to block a spawn. So the next turn will continue to be, I guess it'll be a 3v3. So you can see the enemy Alpha Scarab. It looks very similar to the Techno Scarab. It's just a little bit more of a brighter green color on its abdomen. You can see there's like a little bit more saturation in the natural enemy color. The Secret Squad unlocks a cool paint scheme, certainly, but I do advise changing the color of this squad if you have the opportunity to do so. It helps make them more visually distinct. We are well on track to lighting everything on fire that we need to. The upgraded Techno Hornet is good at doing damage over a pretty wide area. And you can already see me getting pretty significant value out of the upgrade. You know, it's got a range 2 now, which extends my ability to push things. It also lets me damage multiple enemies at once. And even just doing 2 damage is, you know, a significant upgrade. It allows me to one-shot most non-alpha Vec. With a push, I can kill the tougher non-alpha Vec. And I can also soften up the most alpha Vec pretty significantly at this point. So we're just doing our standard cleanup here, preventing the grid from being damaged. We are otherwise in good shape, getting a little bit of extra XP, and we have a successful first mission. The only downside is we had to give up 2 grid health, so we are running a little bit low, a little bit nervous here. We're going to have to start taking the grid health repairing missions as soon as we can. And we've only got one option, which is to kill 7 enemies with air support. As nice as it would be to get a extra power core, I think we need to focus on our grid health first. This should be a pretty decent mission. You know, we have the bomber to help us rack up those kills. This map seed looks a little bit tricky, though, especially with starfish around. So I deploy my mechs in between the grid buildings in the hopes of maybe baiting the starfish to attack me instead of the grid. I'll still have to do something if they decide to attack from square D4. So we are a little bit lucky here. 2 of the Vec are doomed with the incoming bombing strike. We just have to do something about the Alpha Starfish and the Alpha Hornet. So we're going to soften up the Alpha Hornet so that it will be destroyed when it blocks the spawn. And then the Techno Beetle can push the Alpha Starfish into the danger zone. So we will have 4 kills right off the bat. Well on track. And then the Scarab is very obliging. So we'll have 5 kills now, which means we can let 2 more enemies spawn, and we will still be able to complete our mission. So at this juncture, I'm trying to block spawns. And really what I should have done, a little bit of a misplay here, I could have pushed the Scarab to block the spawn on F3. Then the Scarab would have died and also prevented a spawn for us, but it's okay. I instead lit a grid tile on fire to try and dissuade the enemy from attacking the grid. And my efforts are largely wasted as the smoldering Scion arrives, which renders the enemy immune to fire damage. But it's okay. We're going to continue to do spawn blocking, and we will also get this Alpha Gastropod destroyed. I tell you, I was very happy to roll the +2 HP on the Techno Hornet. It's very fragile, and that's one of its main weaknesses. But with that +2 HP, it now is much more durable, and it can comfortably do some spawn blocking without having to worry about it too bad. Very clutch upgrade. I then face a little bit of a conundrum here. I don't have quite enough damage to finish off the Hornet. I could attack it with the Techno Beetle and kill it, but then the Techno Beetle would be lit on fire and would die and would lose, you know, a chunk of the experience that it had earned. So it's okay. No worries. Mission accomplished. We are on track for another Perfect Island reward, assuming we can do 2 more missions and a boss fight successfully. So now we have even more choices available. We have knock mites off the Vex, or off the mechs. We've also got defend the tanks and a protect the coal plant. So 2 options that'll restore the grid, potentially. Even though Artifact Vaults will be starting off as a 6v3, I did like this map seed. I think it's usually pretty favorable to the player. However, we have to keep those tanks alive if we want our perfect island reward, and this first turn turns out to be pretty tricky. I think I even have to use a temporal reset here. Things are further complicated by the arrival of the time pod. So the tricky part about this turn is 2 Vec are targeting the tank on C5. 1 Vec is targeting the other tank on F5. And then the Alpha Hornet is threatening 3 grid health. So 3 major problems that we have to address. And it took me a while to think up of a solution here. Now, one cool thing is the Techno Beetle, I gave it the Smoke Behind upgrade. This means that it can push one of the starfish out of the way and smoke the other starfish, giving us a 2-for-1. However, part of the problem here is that I need to push the tank on C5 to safety. You know, we can't kill the scarabs. We lack the ability to do so. So the only way to save it is to push it out of the way. Now, what I should have done, and again, this is hindsight being 2020, was position the Techno Beetle on D4, push the non-alpha starfish, then it wouldn't be hitting anything. Then the smoke would cancel out the attack of the alpha starfish. This would then allow the Techno Scarab to push the friendly light tank out of harm's way. And then the Techno Hornet could have pushed the enemy Alpha Hornet out of the way. However, I did not see this initially, so I'm going to have to use a temporal reset, and I make a minor mistake in my final execution, so we're going to fast forward a little bit in time to show you where I went wrong. Okay, so this is post-temporal reset. The mistake I do here is I wind up killing the alpha starfish. And I've already moved the Techno Hornet. So I should have rearranged things to push the tank first. This is the best that I could do here, and it unfortunately means I have to damage the grid. It was just a mistake of using up my temporal reset and then committing my actions after doing movement. That's the thing you want to avoid doing. It's something that I probably do not stress enough on these guides. But, you know, it's easy to make these mistakes, especially when you're excited about, like, oh, I saw a better solution. And then you kind of rush to execute, but you don't think about the absolute optimal kind of sequence of actions. So, you know, both tanks are currently still alive. And the downside is that we lost 1 grid health instead of losing 3. I mean, that's better than the other option. But, you know, still a little bit annoying. We're only going to be making a net 1... a net of 1 restored grid health on this mission, assuming I don't lose any other buildings. However, after this turn, the tanks will come online, and we'll get some assistance here. Here's another good example of why I find the Alpha, or the Techno Hornets upgrade so valuable. You get a situation like this where the Vec line up next to each other. Both of them have only 2 HP, so we get a nice 2-for-1. And we also have the tanks active now, so we've got, you know, a nice little action advantage for the remainder of the mission. And for no real reason, we're just going to be pushing this Scion back to the enemy side of the board. Why not? So it's our final turn. No threats to the grid. All we really have to do is move the tanks out of the way. And that is GG. One nice thing about the archive tanks that is different from the deployable light tanks is they have one more space of movement once they're online, which is kind of cool. Just kind of getting a little bit fancy here, going for a total board wipe. Not 100% necessary, but, you know, it's fine. We've got one mission left before the boss fight. Slowly working our way back up the grid repair. We are on par from where we began the run. And we've got a new power core, which I think I wind up putting into the Techno Hornet again. Eventually aiming for that final range and damage upgrade. It really makes a big difference. But we'll also take more movement on a flying unit. Very useful. I think the choice here was the mission on Old Earth Peak, knock mites off the mechs, and get 2 more grid health. This will let us top things out, or top things off. I was examining the other map seeds before me, and they were looking okay, but I decided to just stick with the grid health restoration initiative. This map seed looked pretty good. You know, the enemy side of the board is largely empty and full of mountains. So we just need to kind of play keep away here. This is also a good example of deploying things in a very specific formation. We can bait the starfish, hopefully. Also, if the gastropods attack on the north-south axis, it is likely they will not be hitting anything important. So my goal here was to just have the Hornet attacking the grid, and that's actually exactly how things unfolded. So we really can ignore everyone, we just have to deal with the Hornet, which means this is a good turn to repair and get some of these mites knocked off. However, I also have the opportunity to do some damage control and some cleanup. So I have the Techno Hornet and the Techno Beetle attack, with the idea that they're going to be in the thick of things, so maybe I can take advantage of eventually letting them be hurt by the enemy. However, I typically find that the Techno Scarab's forced movement, its omnidirectional push, is more vital on any given turn. So this is really the best opportunity to repair the Techno Scarab. It will be free for the remainder of the mission to focus on wrangling the enemy. So we've got a functional 4v3 with the arrival of the Scion. And again, look at that nice serendipitous, the starfish lining up next to each other. And we took the time to weaken the alpha starfish, so we get a fantastic 2-for-1 kill. The Scarab, or the Hornet, is racking up the XP. Now, the Alpha Gastropod is going to attack the Alpha Hornet for me. And what I can do is I can take advantage of this to get the remaining mechs or the remaining mites off my mechs. That's always such a tongue twister in my brain. So Techno Beetle can block a spawn. That'll get rid of the mites on him, and then I have to be a little bit careful because the Gastropod will pull the Hornet before the Hornet attacks. So if I just leave the Techno Hornet where the attack will be coming, it will take some damage and get the mites knocked off of itself. Lovely. The next turn will be a very manageable, functional 2v3. And we will no longer have any mission objectives to worry about other than basic survival. This is a good opportunity for the Techno Scarab to get some good XP. And they get their level up. And interestingly, they get conservative. Now, this is not really useful for us. If we don't find any limited use weapons over the course of this run, that's a wasted experience slot. But, you know, I can always be optimistic and hope that we get something interesting in the future. At least it wasn't something completely useless like Popular Hero. I'm not sure if the Secret Squad can roll Popular Hero, because you can never sell them. That would be like an unfair waste of a skill slot. But I don't know. Further research potentially required. And that's a board wipe. I was beginning to be honestly a little bit surprised at how often I was doing board wipes, and I think that this is indicative of the Secret Squad being maybe low-key stronger than people give them credit for. You know, they've got really good fundamentals, strong forced movement, and the tools available to them, you know, they're pretty simple tools, but they're effective, you know. Every unit can push. And as you can see with some upgrades, the Techno Hornet can do some surprising damage, while also maintaining its ability to push. So we're on to the boss fight with the Scarab leader. Got a pair of Hornets and a Starfish as backup dancers, as well as the Smoldering Scion. I'm trying to predict where the enemy will go. I was thinking maybe the Starfish would head up the eastern side of the board, so I was trying to, like, place one of my units to bait the Starfish. I was unsuccessful in doing so. And we actually get kind of a tricky first turn here. We've got to do something about the Starfish, and then the Alpha Hornet and the Scarab Leader are both targeting the same grid tile. And we have 3 actions to do something about it. Now, I didn't see this for a while, but there was a pretty obvious solution right from the get-go, which is to target the mountain on F5 with the Scarab's explosive goo. This would have pushed the Hornet safely out of the way, and then it's just a matter of the Beetle pushing the Scarab Leader and the Hornet killing or pushing the Starfish away. Now, instead I push after positioning the Scarab, and I see that the Scarab Leader's attack will bump my unit into the grid and damage it, so I need to do a temporal reset here. Getting a little bit sloppy. That's okay. I just, now I am aware that when I reposition the Scarab Leader, I have to compensate for the fact that it does an omnidirectional push. So skipping forward a little bit here, we've got our boys in the position we want them to be in. There's the mountain push I was talking about. I was very happy to see the Techno Hornet got skilled. And that's the second time in a row now that a pilot has gotten both skilled and +2 HP. So I guess it is very possible to get that roll. But the Techno Hornet now is like sitting real pretty. +4 HP and +1 movement means that once we upgrade its weapon, it basically will require no further upgrades. It is just rock solid at this juncture. I find that the Techno Hornet is kind of the unofficial MVP of the Secret Squad. I liken it as its closest analog is like a Prime class mech. And then the Techno Beetle seems to operate closer to like a Brute class mech. And then the Scarab, Techno Scarab, is very obviously a ranged class mech. So we are going to be doing further bullying the Scarab leader. And I saw a really nice solution here. You know, we've got lots of threats to the grid in the middle of the map. However, due to initiative order, we can push the Alpha Hornet and it will kill the Alpha Starfish over there for us. And now we are at a very important threshold where the Scarab leader is on fire with 2 HP, which means as long as it does not target the grid on the next turn, we can basically completely ignore it. It will then burn to death on its own, and we are indeed that lucky. So at this point, mission accomplished. We can just focus on all the other Vec and focus on damage control. Now, the main problem on this particular turn is the pair of Hornets attacking the grid. The Alpha Beetle can push that Starfish into the smoke and cancel out that issue. However, my Techno Hornet lacks the movement to get to square F3. That would be the ideal place to attack from. The non-Alpha Hornet would die, and then I could push the Alpha Hornet out of the way. However, I can push it with the Techno Scarab, but then the Techno Scarab would be caught in the line of fire of the Gastropod. However, there is a way to have my cake and eat it too, and that is to take advantage of the Scarab leader's attack. Since it goes first, it will knock the Scarab, my Scarab, out of the way. I thought that was a very clever solution. The only downside is the Techno Beetle is now lit on fire, but that's okay. We've just got one turn left to go. And it is functionally going to be a 4v3. We can ignore the Scarab leader. And the only two Vec threatening the grid are the Starfish and the Hornet, which we can finish off easily enough. And then rather than get fancy with it, I just smoke the Starfish. And that will be GG. So that was a relatively painless archive. We had to give up 3 grid health. I think one of those grid health was just, I probably could have saved it. That first mission, though, I was just kind of unlucky. I'm not sure there was much I could do. But we are getting a perfect island reward. We've got 8 reputation and a full grid. We are doing pretty well. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we get a gift. A gift to the enemies of Mordor. The Wind Torrent. I have not had the chance to show the Wind Torrent. It is considered one of the greatest weapons in the game. Even with the premium I have to pay, equipping it to a Cyborg class mech, it is well worth it. And we have we rolled conservative on the Techno Scarab. The Wind Torrent is normally used once per battle, and then for just one upgrade, you can use it infinite times, which is hilarious. But considering I already have to pay a power core to equip it, and we have a pilot with conservative, I was like, okay, let's put that on the Techno Scarab, and then we can save a power core. I probably won't have to use it every turn, but having it available twice per mission should be enough. The Wind Torrent, as you will see on the next episode, is extremely powerful, and I also saw, with the way that things shook out, I could buy 2 power cores, and then I had 2 reputation left over. So I decided to go and buy the Grid Repulse weapon. It's cheap to equip, normally free, so for the Secret Squad, that's a good choice. And then it is essentially an infinite range weapon. It just targets a grid tile. So I thought, oh, that's a good pick for the Techno Scarab, which can sometimes find itself a little bit out of position due to the nature of its charging attack. I thought this was a pretty cool setup for this squad. I also rearrange, I take the movement upgrade and use it to activate the Grid Repulse, because I've got Adrenaline, and I think that usually shores up the speed issues pretty decently on the Techno Beetle. So then my final upgrade goes to the Techno Hornet with the idea of eventually getting its final range and damage upgrade. So join me for the next episode, and I will see you guys in the future. Peace.